Hello, my name is Christian Congatz, and today I will be discussing the ethical issues that have arose in a podcast. The podcast I have picked is called You Have the Right to Go to Prison by Very Bad Wizards, with Tamla Summer and David Pizarro. Now, this podcast was extremely interesting to me, and I found these topics discussed were extremely valid and also relatable to an extent with the ethical issues that we have been discussing during my term. Although this is an American podcast, both of the topics have and can be used in wider society to understand the ethical issues that are in the world today. So there are two main topics. The first topic is anti-naturalism, and the second topic is prison, and especially the Gideon versus Wainwright case. Anti-nationalism, the first topic, is a philosophical position on reproducing in today's society. It has a standpoint that giving birth to a baby is ethically wrong due to the suffering that one will endure. Now, both hosts of this show have children, so they present a very neutral case, but they have also shown signs of being biased, which is, of course, understandable if you have children. The notion of this position is that the world we live in has suffering all around us, and it's already overpopulated, so the people that believe in this opinion are ethically trying to do the right thing by the child. I do agree with some aspects of this, however, it is such an interesting concept that I found it very hard to completely accept. From the perspective of anti-natalism, they are trying to better this world by ensuring a positive future, yet they are also making assumptions for children that have not been born yet. What would they think? Would they rather be not alive or endure a bit of suffering? I think that the people who follow this position on life are trying to be ethically correct and do a good move for humanity. However, I do disagree with them making the assumption that their offspring, if they had a choice, would prefer not to be alive. I personally would have chosen to be alive, even if my suffering was very bad. Then again, I am a white male living in Australia, so my suffering is nowhere near the comparison to others in Australia or the world. They brought up actually a very interesting case. This case was in India. There was a son who sued his parents. Ironically, they are both lawyers because they brought him into this world without his consent. His name is Raphael Samuel, and he had his first thought of anti-natalism at the age of 5, when his parents asked him continuously to go to school. He replied with, "Why did you give birth to me?" His father had no response, which was probably not the smartest move. However, this article from the BBC does confuse me in some way. I've done a bit of research, and there are many studies showing that you cannot remember anything from when you were born up until the age of 5. Now, is Mr. Samuels a liar, or is anti-natalism a position of the extreme intelligent population? Overall, the issue was extremely interesting, and it gave me very good ethical situations to discuss for both the good and the bad. Both of the hosts talk extremely well, they're extremely funny, and they tried the hardest not to laugh at some WikiHow posts on anti-natalism. Now, the second topic that I'm going to discuss, it was in a lot more detail, and it did take majority of the percentage of the podcast. You Have the Right to Go to Prison. This title of the podcast intrigued me a lot at first. I thought I understood it, but I only really understood it when I was halfway through the podcast. The host explains a crucial case in America. It was Gideon v. Wainwright in 1963. Now, the case was where Gideon got caught for breaking and entering and burglary, and he demanded a lawyer because he could not afford one. Now, the court at this point denied his appeal, and he was sentenced to 5 years in jail. When he got out, he started a petition to ensure that all Americans can be legally represented in a court of law. Now, this actually falls under the 6th and 14th Amendment. The 6th Amendment in America is a guarantee of representation in a state of court of law by an attorney. Once the host gave us an overview of what we were going to be discussing, they dug deeper into the ethical issues of the topic. They explained how the system of justice works in America, and who exactly is copping the stick for all of this. Now, in America, 90% of cases end up in a plea bargain. Now, the African American to white American ratio in prison incarceration is 7-1. 2/3 of the African Americans who do not have a university degree will face jail at some point in their life. The reason why they were given this background information is to explain that people vastly affected from this decision are usually poor and of African American descent. The Sixth Amendment has a Marxist view in that they are setting great laws so everyone can be represented. However, they are being represented by a corrupt and unjust system. The amendment is protecting the unequal power structure of the law system in America. Now, these are a few unethical issues that this arises. Number one is that due to the legal representation, it could have actually increased the amount of people who go into incarceration. Number two is that the lawyers who are representing these cases are not doing their job efficiently and correctly. Now, there have been many cases in America where, in fact, the defendant's lawyer has fallen asleep during court. That just shows that they're not paying attention. They're not giving everything and 100% to ensure that the justice system is upheld. Now, most lawyers will tell the client to not go to trial and take a plea bargain because it's a smarter move. And you can maybe, if you're charged with a 15-year sentence, you can get it reduced. What the prosecutors are also doing in America are they are bumping up a lot of these charges to make it seem very scary and to ensure that people, instead of just going to court and maybe getting away with it in the trial, they're just taking the plea because they're scared of what's going to happen. Now, however, in reality, the lawyers actually just want the system to work in their favour. They want to look good and not become affiliated with this obstructing justice. Now, this is where the system is really failing. A very interesting fact is that if 10% of the cases went to trial in America, the court system would become crashing down and very quickly, because simply the government and the courts cannot deal with the amount of trials. The hosts talk about how majority of the people have fallen into the illusion that their lawyer is beneficial to their case because they think they are being represented correctly. Yet you can now see that it's quite the opposite. The strongest claim throughout this podcast, the host made that it was explaining the Gideon case, and they've been trying to decide whether or not the legal system in America would have been better with or without the help of the lawyers. Now, this is a very unknown situation and cannot actually be decided. However, the more overall ethical issue is about the lawyers and their ability to give hope and justice to their clients, but in return, they're actually making themselves look better for future career choices and also ensuring that the government system of justice does not come tumbling down like a ton of bricks. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for watching.